and Abraham, their flocks were getting too big, not enough pasture land, and the sheep herders, cattle herders, all of them from each side were starting to get a little angry with each other because there wasn't the pasture. So Abraham sized it up, and he said, you know what? You go to the right, I'll go to the left. You go to the left, I'll go to the right. I don't want any trouble between us. We're just too big. We've grown so much. We've been so prosperous. So we see here Lot looking, and he's looking down at a paradise, like the Garden of God, down to Sodom in the plain of Jordan. So he says, I think I'll go that way. So Abraham said, fine. He went that way, and Abraham went what way? He went the other way. Well, paradise isn't always what it seems to be. Not always. Let me open my Bible here for a second. Because down in that plain, there were 9 kings. And Sodom, Gomorrah, and 3 others for 5. And there were 4 others down there. And the 4 decided, you know what, we'd like to take over this area. So for 12 years, they oppressed Sodom, Gomorrah, and the other 3 kings. In the 13th year, the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah said, hey, we've had enough of this program. We're going to rebel. So there was a war, and Sodom and Gomorrah lost. And the 3 friends, the 3 kings, and the other 4 won. So what happens when you win a war? You happen to go into the city, and you want to what? Loot it. It says they took all their goods and all their provisions, and they took Lot. That's what the record says. So someone escaped and went to Abraham. Hey, we lost the war. They sacked the city. They took Lot. So Abraham said, get my 318 trained soldiers that were born in my house. We're going to go get Lot. So that's what they do. And at nighttime they get there, and they have the fight, and Abraham and his men win. And it says they got all the provisions. They got all the goods back. They got Lot back, and they got the woman back. Took everything back. So he goes back to Sodom and Gomorrah. The king of Sodom is happy. And Melchizedek comes out. And Melchizedek says this. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of who? God Most High. Most High. And he blessed him and said, blessed be Abraham of God Most High, possessor. Possessor of what? This is my Father's world. Where did that come from? Way back, right? The owner, the keeper of heaven and earth. So God is the possessor. It's his. Why? He created it. He made it. It's his. It's his world. The possessor of heaven and earth. Haggai 2, chapter 2, verse 8. The silver is who? Mine. And the gold is mine, says the Lord of hosts. The God Most High, the Lord of hosts, says, gold is mine. Silver is mine. The United States holds about 30% of the world's gold reserves, valued at approximately $460 billion. Now, I went on the web, and people have different figures. That's kind of a middle one there. I had a hard time figuring out exactly what they were doing. Some had it really low, some had it really high. But whatever it is, this is what I want to say. Fort Knox, thank you for keeping God's property safe. Right? They're only holding it. That's it. It's God's property. So God claims all the earth's resources. They belong to him. He's the maker. He owns all the precious metals, all the jewels, all the oiled reserves, all the natural resources are his. And then he continues on in Psalms 50, verses 10 to 11, for every beast of the forest is mine. Is mine. And the cattle on 1,000 hills. I know all the birds of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are what? Mine. So he claims all animal life is his. Well, of course, he made them. Who makes the grass grow? Who feeds the animals? God says he makes the grass grow. Who gives them water? God gives them water. Yes. So God is the owner of all the wildlife is his. Then he continues on. David says in Psalms 24:1, the earth is the Lord's and all that is in it, the world and those who live in it. New Revised Standard Version. So the earth is the Lord's, all that is in it, the world, and all the people. So think about it. You're God's. There are people out there in the community that are God's. They just don't know it yet. That's why we go and find them. Now, I'm not talking about soul winning today. That's another one. But he owns all the people. All those. So when we're dealing with people in the community, we're dealing with God's children. So God is claiming here through David the world and those who live in it. He claims the complete world, all the resources, all the people, all the animals, the planets, everything is his. He owns it. And thankfully, he shares it with us. Right? Yes, he does. He shares it with us. We are stewards in a sense. We're his children, and he gives us resources. Not only does God own everything, he also watches over his own. Amen? He's watching. He's watching over you. He's watching over the animals. He's the caretaker of them. God knows the condition of his estate. He knows. He's very well acquainted what's going on with this planet, intimately involved with this planet. And he's a faithful landowner. It's like everything going on here? No, but because of free will, he says, I'm going to make things right. In the sense, I was Sabbath school this week. I'll make things right. So he's the owner. Well, Melchizedek continues on here, back in Genesis 14. And blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. This is when he's talking to Abraham. And Abraham gave him a what? A tithe of all. A tithe of all. So who gave Abraham the victory? God gave him the victory. That's right. God is a personal God, and he was watching out for Abraham. He was protecting Abraham. And Abraham gave him a tithe, or a 10%. How did Abraham respond? It was an act of worship and gratitude. And what did he do? He gave the tithe. Yeah, he gave the tithe. It's an act of worship. Tithing, we just had tithing, and when you place that envelope in that tray, it's a spiritual act of worship as much as my sermon. It is a spiritual act of trust to drop that money, loose money, or the tithe envelope. It's as important as a sermon, as prayer, as the music. Furthermore, tithing reveals if we are seeking first the kingdom of God. So tithing is a witness if we have God's kingdom first. Our tithing should flow from a heart of appreciation, not to impress God, but to honestly and consistently what? Honor God. We call it systematic benevolence. That's why we give when we get paid. It is said of a man who lost his job during an economic downturn, and he learned that a couple towns down there was work. And he decided, no, on Monday I'm going. This was the end of the week. He said, on Monday I'm going. And the fee for the train was $10 to travel to the two towns down. He had $10 left, but $5 of it was tithe money. So he goes to church and he drops $5 in. He keeps $5. He buys a $5 ride, planning to walk to that town down the road. So he had to walk a while to get to that second town. But what was the devil telling him? Oh, you're crazy. You're a fool. What are you doing? Paying the money, walking? And it seemed like maybe the devil might have been right. But as a man got off the train and walked out the road and went down a ways, there's a sign, help wanted. He said, well, you know what? I'm going to go check that out. And he was hired, and he was going to make more money in the first town than he would have made in the second town. This is from William Moses Tidwell, Pointed Illustrations. That's where I got that from. And here's how he ends this. God says, them that honor me, I will honor, and God always makes good. God always makes good. One time I was giving a sermon on tithing, and after church, a lady walked out and says, God has never done anything really big for me. And she caught me off guard, and this was many years ago. This was back in the 90s. This is how much it stayed with me. And as I think about what she said, it might be kind of true. Maybe God has never done anything big for her, but she had a good marriage. She had a home. All her kids were married, had jobs, all of them working. All the grandkids had 5 fingers and 5 toes. And I'm thinking, you have a good life just where you are. So think about it. Now they had their ups and downs with illness and things like we all do, but God was protecting her. God does protect us. And there are times when he steps up when we need it. And so I thought about that. And someday if I see her again, she might not even remember she said that, so I don't know if I'll say anything or not. But our tithing should flow from a heart of appreciation, not to impress God, but to honestly and consistently honor God. So when Abraham paid his tithe to Melchizedek, Abraham looked the Most High God in the eye and said, thank you for your loving care. I want to honor you and give you the glory, and here is my tithe. That's what he was doing when he paid that tithe to Melchizedek. Psalms chapter 96, verses 8 and 9. Give the Lord the glory due his what? Name. Bring in an offering and come into his courts. Oh, worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Tremble before him, all the earth. So, when we come in before God, it says what? Bring in offering. So that's more than just tithe. It's also an offering. Now, I'm going to date myself. When I was, as a kid, going to church, we would get a quarter to give, and that was a lot of money. So parents always said, and then after a while, it went up to 50 cents, but my parents always made sure we had something in our pocket to go. They were teaching us how to give to God. How to give to God. So, bring an offering to the Lord. Now, 43 years later, there's a man named Jacob, a greedy, covetous person, and there was a promise that the older would serve the younger. So Rebekah and Isaac, Rebekah was pregnant. She had twins, and that was the prophecy. The older would serve the younger. Jacob was the younger, but he really wanted that first place. So one day his brother was hungry, and his brother was coming by, didn't catch anything on the hunt. He had some lentils, and his brother said, oh, I'm starving, I'm going to die. Well, give me your birthright, and I'll give you some food. So is that really kind to do? You should just give him the lentils. Well, he did it. Sometime later, Sarah's overhearing a little conversation in the tent between Isaac and Esau. I'm going to bless you. And she said, oh, no, that can't happen. So she goes to Jacob and says, hey, your dad's going to bless your brother. We need to make sure he blesses you. Here, put these goat skits on. I'm going to make the meat dish your father likes, and you go in and you pretend you're your brother Esau, and he'll lay his hands on you and bless you. You know what? And they pulled it off. Esau didn't know. Jacob went in. Oh, you sound like Jacob. Oh, no, Dad, I'm Esau. Okay, give it. Esau was a hairy man, so they put goat skins on. Well, okay, you smell like him, you feel like him, but you don't sound like him. Well, I guess it's okay. So he eats the food, and he blesses Jacob. Jacob leaves. Esau comes in. Hey, Dad, I'm here with the food. Who are you? I just blessed someone else. I didn't think Esau felt about that. Twice now, Jacob knew his life was in trouble. Sarah knew it, so they had to send him away to her father's house. And God beat up on him there for 21 years, taught him a lesson about sneaking. But as he was running one night, he took a rock, made it for a pillow, and God gave him a dream, a ladder with the angels up and down. And God said, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to bring you back to your father's house. And when Jacob woke up, and he said, of all that you give me, I will surely give a what? A tenth to you. So God promised that he would provide for Jacob's needs and would protect him and bring him back. And Jacob believed. Now, has God promised to meet our daily needs? Yes, he has. And has God promised to bring us to his house? Yes. Better back to Abraham's place, right? Our Father's house. Now, did God make these promises because our faith is great? No, he didn't. When did God promise Jacob he would take care of him? When he was running for his life, with maybe he has this little bag down there. I know he didn't have a U-Haul for sure, but he was fleeing for his life. And how do you think his faith was at that point, that night in the darkness? I think it was shaky. We don't know. That's my hopefully sanctified imagination, that he realized he blew it, that he was swindled. And Jacob was a good name for him. So even when life is not going so well, we should still give. We should still give. Why? Because God gave Jacob, and he gives us the promise of future guidance and blessing. Jacob responded by promising God a tenth, showing his faith and trust in God's promises. Here's what it says in Psalms chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. Honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase. So your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will overflow with new wine. So honoring the Lord with our possessions, they're his, to be used as he desires. Our heart desire should be, I will give honor to my Father. From all that you give me, I will honor you with all my increase. All my increase. So if I get a birthday gift, or if I get a bonus at work, or this church has been very generous with Leslie and me at Christmas time, Pastor Appreciation, very generous. We appreciate it. We tithe it, all our increase. We tithe our garden produce. So we tithe everything, paycheck. So I get paid from the tithe, and I pay tithe. I pay tithe. You pay tithe, trusting that God would support and help you in your life. I pay tithe for the same thing. I pay tithe that God would bless you guys. Keep paying tithe so I can have a paycheck. No. So that's why I'm paying tithe. That God's providing for me. He is. If the economy dries up, and tithe dries up, then so I tithe and I give offerings too. That's the first thing we do. So tithe should come from the tenth of the gross and not the net, not for what is left over after taxes and deductions. It says here, God receives the first fruits of our increase. So why does the government take the money out before we get it? What does the government know? They'll be chasing us all around the country to get what we owe. Well, that's what they know. So they take the money out even before we see it. But when it comes to tithe, is there an angel show up at your door, knock with a little bag and say, okay, 10%? The angels aren't there. God gives us a choice to pay or not to pay. Why does he do that? Stay with me, everyone. Because tithe is a response of love to the one who blesses and protects his people. And protects us. There were times where we're going to get to heaven and angels are going to have stories about things where they deflected. They don't deflect everything. Suffering comes to even good people. But we'll be surprised how many times the angels, I'm going to tell a story no one knows. When we were cutting trees on our property, I had my chainsaw, and I was cutting for a long time. My chainsaw was hot as could be, and I needed oil for the chain. I took off the thing, and I accidentally put gas in that hot chamber. It didn't blow. Now, maybe it couldn't blow because it was just hot. I don't know. But when I realized I did, I took it out as fast as I could. I just hoped that God was protecting me. God protects us amazing ways. He loves us. So we believe that God's kingdom is above the kingdoms of this world. He has first claims on all our increase. God gets the first tenth before Uncle Sam, before our bills, before our amusements. And we must live within our means and pay our tithe. Right? Living within our means. If I have every single gadget in the world and the most advanced technology and all these luxuries that we have, but I'm not paying tithe, we're saying that this world is our home. I'm not saying those things are bad. I'm not saying that at all. But we need to have priority to make sure that we are what? Supporting God's kingdom. And he will help us from there. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18. And you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant which he swore to your fathers as it is this day. As it is this day. So remember the Lord. He's the one who gives us the ability to get wealth. Whether it's little or much, it's him. Zig Ziglar wrote, we tithe because we love God and want to obey his word. Now here's what Ellen White has to say. Signs of the Times, 1886. Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, in what way have we robbed you in tithes and offerings? Here's her comment. There has been a fearful withholding from God, and as a result, the withdrawal of his special what? Blessing. So God has a special blessing for his people. There's common blessings we all get. God sends rain upon the just and unjust. He's good to the unthankful and the unholy. So, but there's something special that he has for his people when we are paying tithe. So, will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, in what way have you robbed me? In tithes and offerings? Then it goes on here in Malachi chapter 3. It says, bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. And try me now in this. So what's it mean to try me? Put me to the test. Put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts. If I will not open for you the windows of heaven and pour out for you such blessing that there will not be room enough to receive it. So pay an honest tithe, give offerings to, and says that you're robbing him in tithes and offerings. Tithe pays the ministry. What do the offerings do? You like air conditioning today? You like lights? Right? That helps pay the bills of the church, like Charles says, and there's really a lot going on. A lot going on. So why do we give? Well, Abraham tithed because he was aware of God's present and past leading and protection. Jacob tithed because he was hoping for God's future protection and sustaining him in protection and blessings. So tithe is a heart response to the one who is above all, right? And owns all, and that stoops down, and he loves to take care of his children. He loves that. That's why he does that. So how can we withhold our tithes and offerings from God who loves and saves us? How can we? We can't withhold our tithes and offerings any more than Abraham or Jacob could when they realized how close God was to them and how much God loved them and cared for them. And here's where I want to end right here. God is close to you, and he loves you. And you are special to him. You're his daughter. You are his son. The children here, children, you're his children. And he's our Father. In tithe, this helps support his kingdom. It helps increase his kingdom. It helps to support the ministry, to grow. And as Adventist pastors, we probably make about average of the medium income of this church. We don't make lots and lots of money, but we do make a fair income. So people who think, I was told that I need to get the highest limits on my car. The highest limits I can get on my car. And that's what the conference told us. And why? Because people think if you're a minister, you're loaded, and they're going to sue you to pieces if you get into an accident. But ministers, we just make an average income, satisfied with it. And because of that, I can go out and give Bible studies. I can visit. I can do things. Help Leslie with her classes. Work in prison ministry on Saturday nights. So it really is. Tithing's a blessing for the kingdom of God, and it's a blessing for you to give, because you are giving an act of worship to Him, that you trust Him and you love Him. So remember that. He's our God, and we're His children. Let's have our closing hymn.